There's some fundamental things that you need to do if you want to get your student property rented and rented now, even in October or even in November when the university year has already started, like, last month, September. And way before then, probably around January, February, March, when all the students and the graduates are out, or the undergraduates are looking for the next property and they're finding their groups and putting them together, and then they're looking at houses ready so they're secured and they're paying all the money. You guys know how it works if you're obviously established student landlords, and they're way in advance, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months in advance, they're securing the property. So even right now in October 2019, the groups of students are starting to consider where they're going to be living next year from September next year. But right now, the problem is for all of you student landlords that are listening to this content, watching this content online on YouTube or LinkedIn, wherever you are, or you're listening to the podcast on iTunes, however you're consuming this content, the important thing is that there's many landlords, student landlords in this position right now, scratching their heads where the term has already started and they're just praying and hoping that they will let their property and it's not going to sit empty until literally September next year. So we're going to go through some things right now, guys, which is just some advice, some tips of what you guys can do, which we found is working with student properties in the areas that we're working with student properties in, or the cities and the locations. So this is working right now, guys. Now, in the last 10 days, I've actually looked at exactly 18 student properties right near the universities in the cities, okay? And out of those 18, we've actually got one set of keys, and we've had a group of students already move in. I'm talking 10 days ago, moving in, getting the keys, and that's even in October after the term has started, okay? So it's after September, the term started, we're still letting student properties. This isn't a small one, this is a group of 8, so a big group of 8 students have gone into one of our buildings, okay? So we've actually looked at 18 more student property, or including that one, 18 over the last 10 days or so. Out of those 18, there's probably 4 that we want to go ahead with. Out of those 4, we'll probably get secured, probably 2 of those out of those 4. So we're still bullish, we're still shopping, we're still renting student properties, we're still looking at student properties because we understand what's working right now, and we've got a solution which works for us to get the properties filled even this late in the student year when they're already in and there's hardly any students left. So this podcast, this content, this video, however you're consuming it, is to help you guys, help you landlords, just think a little bit differently to enable you to get your properties rented, okay, as quick as possible, because time is running out. Every day we're getting closer to June, which obviously you guys know as student landlords, most students want to rent the properties from September all the way around until June, and then they go home or their course finishes or something like that, and then they're just not there for the summer break. So as you can imagine, and you understand how it works with the dates and the numbers and everything else, every day or every week or every month we're getting closer and closer and closer to June. We're also getting further and further and further away at the same time from September, which was already last month, and we're nearly in November, so it's very bad, okay? So there's only a very limited amount of months left that you can actually get rent coming in for, because you're going to have to be very flexible. You're going to have to be very, very flexible to get a group of students in now. That's if there is still some students looking, because you will know, you would have felt the pain. You'll know what's happening in your city or town, wherever you are, or wherever your student property or properties or portfolio is located. You will know what's happening. You will be hearing these things from people or friends or family members in the same business renting student properties, that may have had them for the last 10 years and it's been getting £500 a month per room, and there's 8 rooms, that's 4,000 every single month for the last 10 years, and you haven't really had to do any more work to it. You just had groups and groups and groups and groups and groups and groups back to back queuing up to get into the property, and then the next year and then the next year and the next year, and it's been good and it's been great obviously for so long. However, as you guys will all know and you will all see with your own eyes, that in your city, which is it's affecting most of the cities where universities are, they're actually building more and more and more student accommodation, student properties. Nice brand new shiny properties all stacked up on top of each other in a nice community with communal rooms and everything else, and en suites, and everything's new and clinical and space saving. You can have studios, you can have a flat, you can have a room, you can have halls, you can have anything you want, and they're keeping them on campus or purpose built brand new student blocks. Now, that's not good for landlords like yourself, which have had it very, very good for very long, which is naturally coming to the end of that trajectory now. It's declining. So you need to be thinking differently. You need to be more flexible. You need to be, working with other people and talking to other people that understand what's happening right now in your cities or in the student market, so you can adapt to what you need to do now, so you're not stuck with a property that used to rent for, say, I don't know, 4,000 a month because it's 8 bedrooms and 500 a room for the last 10 years, and it's now already empty for nearly 2 months, where there's very, very limited prospects for you to be obviously renting that between now and June by finding a group of students when they've got all of the choice with the new build, they've got the en-suites, they've got all the luxury things, and it's brand new. And these companies, these developers, these the campuses, what they're doing is they're offering flexible terms. So it's not like how it used to be for landlords, where the students would say, I only actually want it from September, or the group, until June. So they used to say, I want it from September till June. So when there's not too many students around, when there's lots of properties around and not enough students, it's then in the favor of the student can dictate the terms and say, I only want it for this period. But when there's lots and lots of properties and there's not many students, it's obviously the other way around. You have to, the students can dictate the terms that they want. So just to ensure that that's cleared up, when there's demand for students, you can be choosy, or you can be rigid with who you take and your criteria by saying, nope, this property is available for 52 weeks and that is it. Doesn't matter if you go home in the summer, it will still have to be paid the rent every single month. I mean, some landlords, student landlords, would have given like a little incentive or something through the summer, but they would have still had the rent coming in consistently, or the property would sit vacant from, June until September, okay? And the students obviously don't want to be paying for that period from June to September when they go home, and they don't have to pay for that period, or they don't want to pay for that period, and they obviously don't need to pay for that period right now in 2019 in October, because they can negotiate hard, because obviously there's lots and lots of student properties in the private rented sector near universities. More and more landlords have been getting in as the student numbers have been declining, and obviously the halls are keeping the students there, the campuses are keeping the students there. Then you've got the developers, which are doing deals with the universities, and now the universities are more or less in the property business by doing deals with these developers and leasing them the land and having some kind of profit share, or they lease it and it comes back to them at the end of the term. So what that means is you need to be thinking differently. So I'm going to go through a few things right now, which is going to help all of you landlords watching this content or watching this video, wherever you are watching it, on whatever platform, or if you're listening to it on a podcast. So these Just a few steps are going to help you guys just think a little bit differently. I want to give you as much value as I possibly can in this content so you can go away and obviously do something different and hopefully get your property let. So it's not sitting empty all the way up until June, July, August, or even September next year, because that would be terrible, basically. That would be terrible, okay? That's the unimaginable. We don't want that to happen for anybody, okay? Any landlord. So the first thing, flexibility. Number one, flexibility. Now, for a very long time, landlords, of course, have had it quite easy, or easier, you could say. So they've got quite rigid, they've got very old school, they've got sort of stuck in their ways, some of them, and there's certain things that they think, for example, let me give you an example. If they want one tenancy, so all of the group has to be found at the same time. They want less admin, whether they do it or an agent does it, and they normally ask for the same, okay? So they want less hassle, everybody on one tenancy. Now let's say you've got a house which can cater for 6 people, okay? Or let's stick with 8, we used 8 earlier. So let's say you've got a house which takes 8 students, 8 separate rooms, okay? Now, what that would mean is you want one group of 8. Now, in the good times, it might be very easy to find multiple groups of 8, but obviously the times have changed now. So you need to be more flexible. So if you just said, nope, I've always got one group of 8 on one tenancy, that's it, that's all I want. You tell the agent that, or it says that in your advert, and you just wait for that. Those times are gone. So what I'm suggesting is what you need to do is be more flexible. So even if you made it up of 2 groups, whereby you said, instead of it having to be 8, this is your advert we're talking about, the first thing the student sees, or what you tell your agent, who then goes and drafts the advert, who then on your behalf looks for students, okay? So just think about this, which we've done recently, and it works, okay? If you said it accommodates 8 people, but we're happy to have either one group of 8, 2 groups of 4 and 4, or a group could rent an entire floor, okay? Let's say you've got 5 upstairs and 3 downstairs, or you've got 4 upstairs and 4 downstairs to make up the 8. They could have a floor each. So you could say to them, 2 groups we're happy with could have a floor each. 1 group of 8 could have the whole thing, or obviously the 2 groups of 4, or you may have to go individuals. So you could say in your advert you're happy with 1 group of 8, 2 groups of 4, or it could be split into multiple groups, maybe 3 groups, or you may even say in the advert, flexible landlord, happy to do a deal where it could be independent. So if you're a smaller group, happy to accommodate you, and then between us we fill the other places, okay? Now, that's one thing for you guys to think about a little bit differently. Now, I do understand that there will be, if you don't have them all on one tenancy, there'll be extra wear and tear in the communal areas, because if it's one group of tenants, they're responsible for the whole house. So when you break it down and have 2 groups or multiple groups or anything above 1 group, they're not all on the one tenancy. It's very difficult at the end for the deposits. However, the deposits for each tenant in each room, or each student, is what they're responsible for. So you may have to, by thinking smart about, it's already nearly November, you don't want the property empty, it's been empty for 2 months or longer. You don't want it empty all the way up until September next year. So if you take a view, or maybe take the risk, which is a bit higher, or take the hit on the communal areas, what it means is you've got multiple groups in the property, and they're all responsible, obviously, for their rooms. But it will get very messy to work out who burnt the carpet in the hallway, or who damaged something in the kitchen, or who broke something in the bathroom, if that obviously happened. But when you think about it logically, every month is costing you, say, let's base it on $500 a month per room, 8 rooms, so that would be $4,000, okay? $4,000 a month. It's already cost you $8,000 that you've lost in the last 2 months. So would you prefer it being empty and losing $4,000 every single month, all the way up until September, next year? Or would you rather just limit or damage limitation, move the tenancies around so you can have multiple people or separate groups, not all on one in that sense, or not all together, so the deposits linked for the communal areas, and then just take the view on if there is any damage, if the carpet is burnt, you know, if there's any damage in the kitchen or anything like that, or the bathroom in those communal areas. Obviously, as a landlord, you will take the hit, which may only be a few £100s. I mean, even in the worst case scenario, if they ruin the carpet in the hallway, or they, you know, damage the TV in the front room if you had a TV, or the sofa, you know, maybe it was new sofa and not obviously an old used one for students you've had there for like 5 or 6 years. Let's assume that your losses are mitigated at a maximum of, say, £1,000. £1,000 loss if the worst happened in the communal areas, while you're also getting £4,000 every single month between now all the way up to September. So that makes financial sense. One thing to think about. The next thing is the presentation. Now, I understand how things have been for a very, very long time, and we do get stuck in our ways, okay? So if it's been a case of just put a mattress on the bed and change it every 3 years, make sure there's a double bed, some wardrobe or a wardrobe, a desk, a chair, you know, a lamp, you know, a table, the usual things that student properties will have. Excuse me, just gonna have some water. The usual things that student properties would have. Okay, so that's how it's been for a very long time in the good times, like in the rising market, and when there's more students than there is properties. So the demand is obviously through the roof and the supply is very low. Okay, so when it's like that, we've got away with those things for a very long time. Because the market's changed and changing rapidly like that, obviously we need to adapt quickly. So, presentation. Now, what we found is, let's just look at the 18 that we viewed in the last 10 days, okay? Now, out of all of those 18 properties, student properties I viewed in the last 10 days, 4 of them only were at a reasonable standard that I think would be still a little bit of TLC, but I think would be, you know, reasonable for a group of students to come round and have a look at it and like it and actually decide to move in. So it could be a nice home for them for a year or even the next 3, 4 or 5 years, depending on how long they're staying and what courses they're doing. And then I drilled those 4 down to 2 that I really want from the 18. But that means the rest of them, which is a very, very, very large number, like 14 of them, or even 16 on the verge. So 14 of them are absolutely terrible. I mean, you walk in, well, before you even walk in, one of them that I got to, it didn't even have a path. It didn't have a path. There was no path. You had to walk across grass in the winter, in the wet, before you even got to the entrance to the property, which was up some more steps. As if like someone had taken the path away or done some work, and now the path was not accessible, and it's been like that for more or less ever. Okay, no path. Just a basic thing. You can't even get to the front door without getting your shoes muddy. So that just completely sets the tone with the curb appeal of what they think from the outside. I mean, when I got inside, basically the whole place needed decorating, the whole place needed carpeting, the whole place needed a handyman to be in there for probably about 3 days just to do the odds and ends where the handle's missing, or the kitchen unit just wasn't even there, or there's mold in the bathroom on the tiles, or the silicone around the bath was black and green with mold. I mean, bare carpet, shredded carpet on the edge of the steps. It was just a case of, had it so good for so long and not done any of the work and not thought they needed to do any more work, because there's groups and groups and groups and truckloads of students that are coming along and saying, yes, we want it, queuing up for the property. Obviously, those times have gone. So these needed a facelift. They needed kitchens, they needed bathrooms, they needed carpeting, they needed decorating, they needed handymen. You wouldn't want your dog to live there, put it that way. Or you wouldn't even want your neighbour's dog to live there, which barks all the time and you don't even like it, and it makes a hell of a lot of noise and you'd rather it wasn't really there anymore. So you wouldn't even put your neighbour's dog in there. It was that bad, or nearly 16 of these properties were that bad. And the landlord or the agent who showed me around is obviously like, yeah, I mean, it's done so well for so long. This one used to rent for 3.2. We've had 3.2 a month for the last 8 years. This one was 4.2, 500 a room we're getting on average. It's like, the landlords are sitting at home just scratching their heads like, why is it not rented? I don't understand. And the agents as well, some of them are thinking, well, we know something's happening and something's changing a little bit. Maybe it's that Brexit thing. But we don't really understand that much what's happening. We just think, it's just this year is bad. It's the fucking property that's bad. The state of the fucking property. That's what's bad. So the mindset with the agent and the landlord, they're stuck in the past. In a time warp where this used to work, which was great in the good old days. But now they need to innovate. All the new builds, all the campuses, all the houses, the apartments, the flats, the communal student halls, the blocks they're building, all the rooms with en suites on the campuses and stuff like that. Have you seen what's going on? This is what I'm thinking to the agent and to the landlord. Have you seen what's happening just there? There's 800 houses or student rooms being built there. There's 600 down there. There's planning for another 1,000 over there. And these are all within close proximity. So do you not think that this is linked to, like, the standards have been brought up to here? Yours used to be there. Now it's there because it hasn't been renovated in the last, 5-10 years. And now the new builds are coming on, which are there. So now there's this massive divide. So you need to either get to there or your business is going to die. It's that simple. Non-existent anymore. So forget the $4,000 a month you used to get. You'll be lucky to get, turn it back into a single family house once you've done the kitchen and bathroom and decorated, and you'll probably get about £800-900 a month for that. The original local market rent. Okay, so this is what they're just scratching their heads, and I'm thinking, can you not see the way it's presented? This is what you need to do. Okay, so presentation is key. All right, you need to innovate right now. Do things a bit differently. Dress it, style it. Maybe upgrade some of the furniture, get rid of some of the old broken things which don't really work, or they're different colors and mix and match, and just make it like a nice, decent home. Have a look at some market research on some of the new build student properties where they have their show homes. That's who you're competing against. So when you understand that, that's how you can bring your standards up and get the properties rented, okay? But obviously going back to the work, you have to do the work, right? I know in the old times or the good old days, we didn't have to really go all in and be so thorough with students because it, came with the expectations for their accommodation used to be lower. It's gone from being lower, like we'll take anything, just a mattress on the floor and a wardrobe or anywhere to hang some space and just a kitchen or a hob to cook, a bathroom, and we're good. Obviously, it's changed a lot. So it's gone from here to what they expect is now here, okay? So you have to do the work. So all the things you've been putting off, thinking, that's okay, it's just a student property, it doesn't need to be done, or I can do that in a few years' time to save some money. It's costing you money. You're losing money. So you need to do it as quick as you possibly can at a reasonable budget and standard so that you can keep the money coming in, which is the cycle of why it's not rented now, okay? So the next tip. The student year obviously is around September and it runs till about June, okay? That's when the large percentage of students want their accommodation. Now, when there's massive demand and low supply, then students, I'm talking students, massive supply of students, low demand of property. The students didn't really have a choice. So or limited choice. Everyone's got a choice, of course, but they had limited choice. So they can come to the agent or the landlord like yourself and say, I only want it from September the 1st or 15th until the 30th of June, and that's it. Take it or leave it. No. They need to be signing up for 52-week contracts because you as a landlord don't want the property empty from June until September. That's how it used to be. So now because we're in October, nearly November. Obviously, you want to get your property rented. You're maybe scratching your head thinking, why has it not worked this year? For the last 10 years, it's been absolutely fine. Then you're ringing the agent every day, and the agent is saying, I don't really know, we're doing this, or we're doing viewings. No one's taking it, or we had people that put the money down and they just backed out. It's because they found something better and they've got more value for their money. So the value has to come up, okay? That's what we're here for, to help you guys bring the value up to the students so that you get the money coming in. So, if you're more flexible, just think about this for a minute. With students you find now in, say, October, that might move in, say, as early as possible as November. Now, that doesn't leave many months until June. And they can be choosy and say, we only want it till June. There's so many properties on the market that they can see when they go to Rightmove or wherever they're looking now, Open Rent, anywhere else. And they can sort of dictate the terms. So you as a landlord obviously want to grab that first bunch of students that comes along and says we're interested, shoehorn them in as much as you can because you want to do this deal and let them have it only until June. Now, you might be thinking, if I only take them until June, obviously it mitigates your loss because you've got, only 3 months of rent not coming in at the end. You've already lost 2 months of rent from, all of September, all of October. That's gone, that's behind us now. But you might be thinking, well, what will I be doing between June to September? Because I can't rent it to another bunch for a whole year because they won't want it and they won't want to move in till September and everything else. And then, they might only want it for 10 months or 9 months. But just being more flexible with either short letting or taking a mid-term tenant in between. So when they leave in June and they move back in the same group or a new group in September, consider taking a mid-term tenant. Now, what I mean by that is someone who's happy to go from 1 month to 3 months just to bridge that gap while your next batch of student moves in. Another option is short letting, which is like Airbnb or Booking.com, or you just use the house for professionals, okay? Or you just use the house for those 3 months and rent the rooms individually to professionals. Now, it's a lot more work, it's more management intensive. Again, you can't cover the communal areas with the deposits because they're not all on one agreement, but you need to keep the money coming in. So instead of being rigid, how you may have been in the past because you could be, just think about being a little bit more flexible now and maybe Airbnb. You can find out how to do that on Google, just a quick search and a bit of research, put some hours in. The same for Booking.com, which I prefer, Booking.com. And or you just find some professionals and rent it individually per room. It's better to have some money coming in or a lower amount coming in or the same amount coming in but doing more work just by innovating and just doing things differently rather than nothing for 3 months. Zero. Who wants zero coming in for 3 months? I don't think you do. You've probably felt the pain already if you've been empty for these last 2 months in September and October. We're nearly November. So you're feeling that pain already. So I understand that you won't want it empty for another 3 months at the other end. So I hope you got some value from this. All you student landlords here, whether you've already got properties or you're thinking of getting properties or about to buy properties or you're about to do rent arbitrage, which obviously we've been doing for the last 15 years or 14 years, which is now called rent to rent. So whatever strategy you're using, whether you are a landlord with a vacant property or you're about to get into the student market, as long as you can think of those things we just covered about being more flexible with the advert. So the first thing the students see, which will get you more inquiries. If you've got an agent, tell the agents they're on the same page. As long as you present the property at a much higher standard, that's just light cosmetic stuff, doing the work. I mean, if you just decorated once and carpeted once, the deposit you take from the students covers any dilapidation. So let's say you present the property right now, decorated and carpeted, you invest maybe £2,000. It will stay at that standard when that group of students moves out. And if there's any damage, the deposit will be used to cover the cost to redecorate and put the carpets or reinstate things. Obviously less wear and tear. So you present it at a higher standard, you're going to attract more tenants, okay? Now, Be more flexible on the terms of the contract if they only want 6 months or a 10-month or a 9-month, as long as you have the flexibility now, or you're happy to put the work in to do short or mid-term letting, Booking.com, Airbnb, or even professionals or individual students over the summer for that 3-month void period. And just take the hit on the communal areas if you have to put the tenants on separate tenancies or 2 or 3 groups or even individuals, okay? Even if they're individuals, you want to get the property rented, you want to get it rented as quick as possible with the right group of tenants as well, with the balance against all the risks, not just any tenants, of course. So as long as you think about those communal areas as well, and you do those things, guys, you will help to get your property rented as quick as possible. Now, I hope that delivers some value, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts.